This podcast was edited and uploaded by Uncle Geeb Productions. Hey guys, welcome everyone to the Drip G podcast. I'm your host, Uncle Geeb, and with me is Host Drip Media. No, he's not. With me is guest host Tyson W and Faptor Race. I have butchered this all together. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Google, or anywhere you can find a podcast. You can also watch our video podcast over on youtube.com/DripG. Like I messed up a second ago, we have two special guests with us tonight. The first guest in no particular order. You can find him at youtube.com/Tyson W.
Thank you.
That is going to be, or the Tyson W. I don't know. Links down below. Tyson, what's up, man? And
hey, what's
also,
up?
Yes, and we also have a beautiful Twitch streamer from Down Under. He's also in the future, if you didn't know that. We have Faptor Race, Fappy, Tyson, both of you. How are we doing today, guys?
Feeling good. Feeling really good.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate being here. I'm doing fantastic. I've been looking.
I keep
forward
forgetting
to
to thank you. Thank you as well.
No, you don't have to. Listen, Tyson thanks way too much. You don't have to thank as much as Tyson.
It's because I'm genuinely grateful, Geeb. Genuinely grateful. Okay.
And I'm Australian, so I'm just not.
Listen, the Philly attitude. It's we whatever. We're grateful without saying it, but I appreciate you guys for joining us for sure. Drip is fired. If you didn't hear, Drip was there was a scandal involving Drip and an amiibo. We cannot comment on this time. But as of right now, he is no longer part of this podcast. But with us tonight is Fappy and Tyson. Maybe the Tyson and Fappy and G podcast emerges tonight. Who knows?
At some point,
it is the last episode of Drip G podcast. It's, because like I said, we will not talk about that incident with Drip. But as of the first set of orders that Geeb the Great throws down the hammer after Drip's firing it's all about Pokemon tonight, guys. Something that Drip would never approve of. It's an all Pokemon episode. All jokes aside, though, Drip's not fired. We're talking about Pokemon again. We had Tyson on not too long ago talking about the first patch, or actually that was the second patch, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah,
Tyson?
yeah. I believe it was the first major patch. It was. Well, I mean, I honestly don't remember. Yeah. Well, it was. I don't know, man.
Was it 1.2? Wasn't it 1.2?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Look, let's be honest. There's so many problems with this game. It's hard to keep the patches keep track of them all. Anyway, let's continue.
No, you're not wrong about that, Tyson. I mean, yeah. Let's just kind of dive into it a little bit right there. I mean, we'll start off there. Like, before we get to the actual patch notes themselves, we'll look over them here in a second, and we'll talk about them for you audio listeners. I just have this feeling that, like, they're just releasing these patches, right? This is patch 1.3. Presumably there's been 1.2 and 1.1 before for this latest one. Every time they release these patches, it is just the longest list that you have ever seen of, like, insane like big glitches. This is not like minor little fixes. We're talking huge glitches, things that are missing, broken, just straight up broken things. There's just a lot of that. And this patch note, in these patch notes of the game, I've not played the game yet. I believe the two of you have, so I'll let you guys talk about it more than I have. But I mean, is there anything here? We're on 1.3 patch 1.3 now. Have you guys, you and Fappy, I'll let Fappy go first. Fappy, have you seen anything significant from this 1.3 patch from your eye? I'm not talking about what they have said they've fixed. I mean, like, well, I guess I kind of am. What have you experienced, whether they said it in the patch notes or not? What have you experienced that is different? Not better, just different from, before the patch.
So, yeah, on that note, I've got roughly 18 hours in Pokemon in the last 3 days.
You're qualified for this, that's for sure.
That's more than me, dude.
And that's after the patch came in, so it's definitely, there are some noticeable battle differences. They've definitely fixed a couple of little things in battling, and for some reason transitions seem to work a little bit smoother in raids that I've noticed, which is the whole concept of you all fight tough Pokemon together in multiplayer. But other than that, I haven't really noticed too much in performance quality, and I feel like that'd be the stretch mark that we need to hit, and I don't know why we haven't yet, and it's quite strange that we haven't. But yeah, I can't say I've noticed any performance enhancing drugs in that sort of sense.
This is Major League Baseball. No performance enhancers at this point. We'll get to performance in a minute. But Tyson, have you seen anything different? From your experiences from before the patch and now after it.
So, I thought I did, and we talked about it a little bit before, but I'll get into kind of what I feel like I've seen, and then we can talk about that. I've only really booted up the game just a couple times since the patch. I'm not playing as much Pokemon as I am, and we can get into why later. But I felt like when I booted up the game after the update, that performance was a little bit better. I made the comments to you guys before we went live that the render distance seemed to be a little bit better, more akin to something like Breath of the Wild. Not quite as good, like there was still quite a bit of pop in or whatever, but it seemed to me like it was better. It definitely seemed to run smoother, but that's always kind of like in the back of your mind with these games especially, but any game that has a bug that that receives updates like this, you're constantly asking yourself, is this just a placebo effect? So for me, it felt like the game ran a little bit better, felt like the render distance was better. One thing I feel like I did notice was that raids worked better. I really didn't take note of why I felt like they did, but it just seemed like the damage dealt was more accurate because they were having problems with that, with moves like Play Rough and things like that. And I was using a Azumarill in one of the raids after the patch that I was doing, and that's one of the kind of the bigger Pokemon that uses Play Rough. And it did seem like that Play Rough was working correctly. So I mean, overall, like it seems like the game is, for me at least, a little more stable. But no, like I haven't really noticed anything huge, to be honest. Nothing big. So, and I haven't battled much either. I'm more known for battling, which is kind of what they're focusing on with a lot of these updates. And I haven't battled much, but I'm sure that those changes have been implemented or whatever. But I just haven't played as much lately. But yeah, we'll talk about that why later.
Yeah, so with that being said, I haven't really played the game since the update. I did download it finally today, but I haven't actually got a chance to boot into it yet. Excuse me. Let's just read over some of these patch notes. I know you both kind of brought out some points here. Let's just kind of go over them. It's actually not as long as I thought. It's a little shorter than I thought it was, but it's still
definitely not as long as last time, right?
Oh, for sure. Last time's was way big. This time is much more
about
reasonable.
Half the size.
Yeah. But I mean, still kind of big things here. I mean,
I think the biggest thing that they were looking to address was kind of, and it's the first patch note that's on here as far as fixes, at least the list that I'm looking at on Cerebi.net. So if the viewers want to follow along, go to Cerebi.net and just Google the patch notes or whatever. You can find them there. But it seems like they really wanted to address the walking wake and what's the other one, Fappy? Help me.
Iron Leaves.
Yeah, Iron Leaves. The Iron Leaf raids where people didn't update the game and caught an egg by accident and it glitched their game out. So that was like, let's be honest, that was the main focus of version 1.3.0. Like that was the biggest thing they were aiming to change with this update.
You want to explain that change a little bit for those who might not be too familiar with that particular issue?
Fappy might have a better understanding of it than I do, so it might be better for him to take it.
Yeah, so from what I know of it, essentially in 1.1, they had the Walking Wake and Iron Leaves raid released, and a bunch of people who didn't update appropriately or properly on their Switch would do the raid, go to catch the Pokemon at the end of the raid by defeating it. They would get an egg, and then that egg would be game-breaking, essentially, because you could not get rid of it. You could not hatch it. You could not get it out of your inventory box. And it made the game have this, basically a chunk of file that should not be there. And it could cause other issues in latency and all that sort of stuff later down the track. But with this new update, it's basically saying that, and here's the weird thing, it fixed the issue so when the repeat of the raids come out, you can then catch those Pokemon again. And it states that in the patch notes. However, what it doesn't tell you is it didn't get rid of the egg.
Oh,
geez. So if you have the egg, you're stuck with the egg still.
That's news to me. I didn't know that one. So
I did a little bit of research on that because that was a big issue. And it happened to me in my Violet game, but it didn't happen to me in my Scarlet game. So,
dude, that's wild. That's wild, actually, that it didn't fix the egg issue.
Yeah. It's so a lot of people are still complaining. It's maybe like 1 in 100,000, but it's still like people still have that issue,
Yeah.
and they have this egg that's still stuck there, but they have the permission to catch the Pokemon again because you only get one. So they have the permission to catch it again when the raid comes out in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's talking. I've not experienced that, but I mean that just sounds like a massive issue. And yeah. Let's just. Was that? Did you? I'm sorry. Were you saying that was actually fixed in this version, or it's still not fixed in this?
So they can recapture.
Yeah, they can recapture them, but the egg is still stuck in there.
After this patch, the egg is still there. The
glitched egg that they caught that they obtained from the original raid before, like pre-patch, is still in their box. They were just allowed to recatch the Pokemon, is all.
So you're telling me the biggest part of this patch is that they fixed the part where you can still catch it now. They give you the permission, but the glitch is still there. There's still an egg in your inventory that you can't get rid of.
It's insane, dude. It's crazy.
I'm not aware of if Nintendo released a statement on how to get rid of it, or the Pokemon Company released a statement on how to get rid of it. I'm positive there is a way to get rid of it, but unless you like overclock your Switch and do stuff to the game, I don't think you'd be able to get rid of it without an update, like a proper patch. So
it's wild, dude.
It's like DK Old is sending you a broken console and then you responding like, "Hey guys, the console's broken. What do I do? Can I get a refund?" They're like, "Well, before you send it back, here's some tips." And their tips are fix it. And then 5 different ways how you can fix it yourself by cleaning it and repairing it. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, you sold me a refurbished console. Why am I supposed to fix it myself? It wasn't that supposed to be your job in the factory. That's exactly the same thing that's happening here, where they're like, it's broken, and then here's a suggestion that you can get rid of it. You got to hack your Switch and blah blah blah. But or just wait for an update that's never going to come, or maybe it does come. I don't know, guys. That actually made me more frustrated than I was coming into this podcast. I don't even want to look at these patch notes again.
It's just wild to me because that's actually news to me. Over the last couple weeks, I have not been playing very many games, nor have I been really paying attention to a whole lot of the news. So this is really the first discussion I've had on a lot of this. That is actually news to me. So I took their patch notes to mean that they fixed that issue from start to finish, meaning that the glitches would be gone. But if the egg is still there, then the game file corruption, if I'm not mistaken, it's still present. So you didn't actually fix anything. You just gave your players the opportunity to catch the Pokemon. Like, that didn't fix anything. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's really,
but you still get your Pokemon.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bother going over the rest of these patch notes. We're not even gonna bother because we're gonna get right to the point of why I'm making this episode. It's that I'm speaking for myself. I'm just really frustrated with how the game was released and the state it was. And I sound like a broken record. I sound like everybody else on the internet, but hear me out. Like I'm really frustrated about how they released this game in the state that they did. At the time, I gave them every benefit of the doubt, and that's me, a guy who's shit on Pokemon in the past. I've done it, and I still will in the future. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of issues with the Pokemon Company, Game Freak, as a combination, making games together. We're not talking about that today. Today is just about the frustration and disappointment is like understatement by tenfold. Like, you know what? I gave them the benefit of the doubt because I thought, you know what? We're going to get a statement. There's no way that they did this intentionally. We're going to get, a statement and saying how, and we did get a statement, and they did say about how, they want to fix the performance going forward. Drip and I and Tyson have all made on the podcast before, have all made our like reasons why, our excuses like, oh, well, they're just gonna, they're just gonna fix it in updates in the future. Or, their excuses that our excuse we made up for them was, we don't have enough time. Game Freak doesn't have enough time. That's the reason why. The game came out in the state that it did. There wasn't enough time. Game Freak doesn't have the time. That's we kept saying that over and over.
I think that's true, but like,
but hold on, Tyson. But like, here we are. Let me just finish my thought. Here we are, 6 months after the game released. 3 patches, 1 acknowledgement of an issue, 3 patches with chock full, if I might say, of fixes and glitches that to this point, once again, still has not scratched the surface of all the issues in the game. Yeah. Some of them that they fixed, apparently like this egg thing, it's still broken after the patch. And we haven't heard a damn thing since that first acknowledgement of performance issues. And so with that, I'll drop it off to you too, Tyson. You
I
sound like you
think
got something.
I think I think the issues still stand. That obviously the root cause of these problems is this release schedule that the Pokemon Company and Nintendo likely have Game Freak on in order to develop these games.
Yeah.
I think that's the culprit. I'm hesitant to point the finger at the developers because I really do think that people that are masters of their craft tend to want to have their work reflect them. So I'm hesitant to really place a whole ton of blame on Game Freak. I really think the responsibility for this kind of thing lies with Game Freak, but the way that this game was released, I'm in 100% agreement at this point. I was willing to look past certain things because we thought, and the thing that we said in previous podcasts that you alluded to, and what you just said, Geeb, was that we've talked about this before. And not, I wouldn't say that we made excuses, but we expected that because Nintendo addressed it publicly on Twitter and elsewhere on the internet, that they were taking the issue seriously. And I think, I think that they are. They're hurting because of this. But the thing is it's not seriously enough. And the truth of the matter, at least from my perspective, is I've said this in our own private chats on Discord. I really now, after the dust has settled on these games, we still don't have a complete game. We still don't have home compatibility, and there's a lot of problems with this game. And that kind of goes back to the complete game thing. For me, this is the worst generation that Pokemon has ever made. And I rest my case. Like it is unequivocally the worst brand new generation. And I'm saying this as a lifelong fan. Like I've played every single generation. I've played since Red and Blue, and it is my franchise. Like if you guys watch my YouTube channel, like that's all it is, as far as live streams go, it's Pokemon stuff. That's my game. But it is, guys, I'll die on that hill. It is the absolute worst generation ever in Pokemon, and they're handling it very incredibly poorly. And the solution would have been, in my opinion, sorry, I'm kind of going off on a rant at this point.
You're good.
But the solution would have been to give it a longer development cycle, where maybe I think at this point, with what we're seeing with this game would have been a complete game in 2 more years. Give it 2 more years in the oven. And I'm not even saying that sarcastically. Put it on the next Switch. Give it the proper treatment and use it to sell the next Switch. Don't push it out on this one. It deserved longer in the oven than it was given. But that's my personal opinion on this.
Fappy,
generation.
any reactions? Anything you want to say?
Honestly, no. Ty covered everything pretty much. I think heavily the same thing. Japan's work schedule definitely keeps in regard the 10-hour working days and everything like that. So you'd be surprised to hear, something isn't finished coming out of a production as big as Pokemon. And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt on some things where it's like, it's their first fully open world game. It's their first expansion into that sort of thing. And they've always been 2 steps behind every other game company for some reason in their stylization of games and gameplay and accessibility. So it makes sense that they would struggle, and they hate bringing people in as well from outsourced companies to help them. So I definitely understand that there's those issues. However, they are at a deadline with the anime. They are at a deadline with plushies and toys and all that sort of stuff that they're trying to push out and make.
And Squishmallows.
So, yes. But I think that's their priority because that makes so much money for them. So games are now their secondary compared to everything else, and that's just how it's going to be from now on. We will eventually have a completed game, but it's going to be a year after it's been out. Even then, next year, there's rumors about the second DLC being released later in the year, not even before then. So it's like in this year. I mean, it's not looking great. It's not looking very good. However, home compatibility on that note, hopefully we'll get it in the next month, because it's been 6 months since release. However, Legends Arceus, which was a smaller game in comparison, Legends Arceus got home compatibility within 5 months after release.
It was still too long, in my opinion, though. Sorry to interrupt you. Still too long.
Yeah,
They
no,
took
no,
way
I
too
completely
long.
agree. But they were doing BDSP at the same time, so I can sort of understand that they were doing both the games and trying to get them within. And it shouldn't take this long. It really shouldn't, considering they have game files in and everything. But because if anyone doesn't understand, Pokemon games release and data miners go in and they find files of Pokemon that will eventually be released in DLCs and stuff like that, and so that's how leaks are made. But this series of games, Scarlet and Violet, they have a very limited amount of Pokemon files in there, and some of them are confirmed to be DLC rumors, and they're leaks that have come out and stuff.
They've
if you wanna
removed
see
some
them.
too, so we'll see them back. Yeah, we'll
they
see
remove
back.
them because they're bringing them in the first DLC, and that's what they do. They take them out so they can refine them, put them back in. So it's like a placeholder. So yeah, I'm completely with Tyson on this. It's too long. It's way too long, and we should have had something sooner.
I think the way that I would put it is they haven't done. They need outside help at this point. If games now, I love Game Freak. Like I have a, as far as like a smaller independent development studio, I've got a lot of respect for Game Freak. So this isn't to throw any shade at Game Freak, but the way that I look at it is at this point they're overwhelmed. They must be, and that's my assumption. Is they need outside help. But at this point, in my opinion, there's a thriving Pokemon community on YouTube and on Twitch. But dude, I've been playing Pokemon since I was a kid, all of them, every single game I've been battling. Battling's my biggest bread and butter. I love competitive battling. And this generation, man, has just kind of lost me. I really feel like they dropped the ball on this. And I think now the only real thing for them to do to pick up the pieces, to speed up the process of getting things done is to to suck it up and get more help, get outside help. And you guys know me. I've actually said in the past, I don't necessarily think outside help just fixes it, because they're not people that are intimately involved or aware of the franchise. But at this point, for me, they've really kind of ruined their own reputation. I have a little bit of salt going on right now with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because for the most part, all I do is if there's a new like 7-star raid, I'll log in and I'll play it for 5 minutes. I'll do the raid, I'll collect the new 7-star Pokemon, and I turn it off and I don't play it. And that's really it's really uncharacteristic of me. Usually I'm finding ways to build new teams, finding new combinations for team compositions and that kind of thing. And then I'm spending a lot of time on the ranked ladder online. And these games, unfortunately, have just kind of not been able to hold my interest. I am 100% just bored with them. And maybe that's a good thing, because I've got a lot of other things going on in my personal life, but that I should be handling before games. But it does say something about the franchise too, that they've really slipped on this generation. And I really can't hit that nail any harder. You know what I mean? Like they've really allowed this generation to just slip. And so I think that they should be doing, is there an extensive list of bug fixes here? Yes. Should they be doing more to speed this process up to appease fans? I actually think they should. I think that we should have home compatibility announced within the week. Like, I don't know if that's going to be a thing, but that would keep people like me a little happier. Because the truth of the matter is we're not getting complete games until DLC comes out. That's just the truth. These games won't feel
good. Well, let's bring up the DLC since you bring it up. I actually wanted. I was going to wait for a little bit later, but this is a good time to bring that up, because let's be honest, you guys have both of you said everything that I was going to ever say in my life about this game within the past 8 minutes. So we'll still continue. Don't worry, we'll still continue the podcast. But I mean, you guys said it all pretty much. But let's bring it over to the DLC, because this just, man, we're trying to keep the curses off the podcast, but this is just another little fuck you to the Pokemon fans and the Nintendo fans who,
talking about price.
Oh my God, dude! Like this, it's everything, not just price, but like the 3 patches that have really done not enough They've done so much. There is so much in these patches, but it's still not enough. That just goes to say how broken these games were to begin with. Then we get the statement about how their performance. We're gonna adjust that 6 months later. 6 months later, still haven't addressed that. But they have addressed. Guys, if you didn't give us enough money the first time, just hold your horses. Now you can give us $70 more.
Yeah. If you want both DLCs.
If you want both DLCs, which a lot of Pokemon fans do get both games.
I did. I paid for them. Yep.
And
you can't get that money back. You can't get that money back on
three times. I have it twice digitally and once physically.
You can't get that money back on a pre-order either for DLC. Like, there's no refunds. So if you change your mind, you can't get it back.
Listen, if it was the most expensive DLC I've ever seen personally that I had any interest in was the Breath of the Wild DLC, which I believe was $20, if I'm not mistaken, $25 maybe. Excuse me. I did see Monster Hunter have released a DLC last year or 2 years ago. The Sunbreak DLC, that was like $40, right? But that was like a whole brand new game. A brand new game. So much so that that's basically become like their standard package when they sell you Monster Hunter Rise. They basically sell you Sunbreak in addition to, because it's like you're getting 2 games for one. That's like they package it together. But my point I'm trying to make here is that the game released in a state of dismay, is that a word?
It just
before they did. I'm not saying they didn't do any updates. They definitely did some updates, and there's a lot of stuff in it. But it's still, at the end of the day, those updates were not enough.
It's not enough.
And on top of that, in the middle of their update cycle, their patch cycle, they're like, hey. More money, please. Here's some updates. DLC. Which I'll let you go next, Tyson, because you have a strong opinion about this. Not in my opinion, the games are fine the way they are, but Tyson is under the belief that they're unfinished and that the DLC is going to finish the game for it. And if that's the case, and I trust his Pokemon opinion, if that's the case, we're talking about a game that costs, with its DLC, $95 to be complete. It was released in a garbage state, and 6 months after its release, it's still not fixed. Not just acceptable.
Until the DLC.
Not just acceptable. We're not talking about it's not an acceptable level. It's not fixed because it was broken to start. We need to fix it first. Let's fix the hole in the boat, and then let's go ahead and reassure it. They haven't even fixed the hole. It's still leaking.
That's right.
And they're like, hey, well, here's a new boat. It's a boat attachment. Okay, my boat's currently sinking, but I'll buy your boat attachment to make my boat cooler. Yeah, it'll be sunk in a few minutes, but I mean, why not? Tyson, talk about the fact that the game's unfinished.
Well, it is, man. It's just, everybody knows it at this point. And look, are they enjoyable games to play? Yeah, until you reach a certain point, but there's only so much you can do. And like I said before, the only thing keeping me playing now is those 7-star raids that come out. Like this most recent one they've announced is Inteleon, and that's the chameleon Pokemon from Sword and Shield. And it's cool to see those Pokemon, but do you want to know how many Inteleons I have in my Pokemon home? I don't need another one. It's not exciting for me. And that's the silly thing with these 7-star raids. I can catch these Pokemon in this game, sure, but I have Pokemon home with it sitting in there already. And okay, is it a special Terra type in Scarlet Violet in this raid? Sure, but I can use Terra shards to convert that at any point in time. I don't need this. It's silliness. And so, but when we talk about how the game released unfinished, all they're doing, and I hate to say this because, but I am a little salty, so I'm going to be honest about it. But all they're really doing is keeping enough interest until the DLC comes. That's all they're doing. Now, there is a strong competitive component to Pokemon, and some would actually argue that this is the best competitive Pokemon has ever been. I will say that the competitive is fun, but if you look over the patch notes that we just got, there's a plethora of bugs that they fixed in this 1.3 update. And there's still probably plenty more that I'm not even aware of because I haven't been playing a whole ton of Pokemon lately.
So while you bring that up, let's read that. We got fixed a bug in link battles where selecting swap.
There's so many.
Just before the selection timer reaches 0 could fail to switch in the selected Pokemon and subsequently cause switching the battle itself to act abnormally.
What?
It's not. Listen, when I read patch notes for games, it's always like, We fixed
Bizarre, man.
We fixed the texture issue. We fixed his left foot. He had 2 left feet instead of 1 left and 1 right. This is like that's the first one. Fixed. It's a long. Fixed a bug in Link battles where once the remaining time for battles was under 1 minute, it would no longer be displayed where it was supposed to. Okay, that's a weird one. That's kind of weird. Fixed a bug that occurred in Link battles. Again, Link battles. I get the 3rd update for Link battles. This is the 3rd. This is not a 0.1 patch. This is 0.3. Okay, guys?
This should have been a day 1 patch. If anything at all, day 1. This should have been in the day 1 patch.
That occurred in Link battles where, depending on the move being used at the time the Pokemon fainted, the amount of time a trainer received their selected. Received to select their next Pokemon was reduced. Like they're
yeah.
That's just silly. It's a silly little thing.
Well, those are Link battles, and then there's the other category there where they've got battles, and so but those battle bugs affect all battles. So like the first one, I'll just read the first one. It says fixed a bug where Cud ability would trigger again once every 2 turns after it triggered the first time, contrary to what is written in the ability description. So it wasn't coded properly. And
it wasn't coded properly.
It's just wild. It's funny they've got it under the battle category, but that would affect all battles. That would affect everything. That would affect all battles. And that's what's silly about it is like that's what Pokemon's bread and butter is that after you complete the game, after you complete the story of the game, you have this entire wide meta that opens up to you with competitive battling. And the fact that it's just so horribly broken in these games is really what leads to people like me feeling like there's no reason for me to play it because it's just not a complete game. You know, every Pokemon game launches with a few bugs or whatever, but these games, it's just unlike anything we've ever seen in a Pokemon game. And it's funny because you'll see on Twitter, if you follow like Joe Merrick or, you know, I won't name too many people because I feel like it's in poor taste to actually name names, but there's so many people just defending it. And it's like, guys, it's okay. Like, I understand it's your favorite franchise. It's mine too, but it's okay to say these games were not complete. And I think for me, as someone who is a really, really big fan of the Pokemon franchise, who loves it, I love it. I love everything about it. I love the stories. I love the lore, and then I love the thinking. I love outsmarting people in competitive battles. I love that aspect of it. It's okay for us to say like this could have used another 1.5 years, maybe 2 years in the oven. It's okay to say that. Like you don't have to apologize for it. Like. This game just needed more time. And I think more people, this is just me, but I think more people should actually be in support of Game Freak here because I am sure that Game Freak is under the gun. And I guarantee you they all hate these release schedules. Like as far as individual developers go, they have to hate working under that level of pressure because it's got to be just a massive ton of pressure. So that's where I'm at with that. But like, you know, we were talking about the DLC before and the price. And then basically waiting for a complete game. Sorry, did you have something?
I just want to get Fappy in there. If Fappy had anything to kind of
go ahead.
We haven't talked to Fappy in a while.
Sorry, I was patiently listening. The one thing I will point out is you mentioned like people defending the game and everything. Those same people, and I was one of them at one point. And I will still defend this game for what it's worth, and that's not a lot lately, but I will defend the parts I like. However. The major argument a couple years ago with Sword and Shield was the national dex cut. Imagine if we had all 1,000 something Pokemon in this game with this amount of bugs, and then it continued into even more bugs because you had more Pokemon that existed in the world instead of what we currently have, which is 400 and something. Like, people have to realize this shit takes a lot of time. And yes. as you said, another 1.5 years in the oven would have done it wonders.
Bro, I'm a Zelda fan. We waited 6. I mean,
yes,
we waited 6 years for Tears of the Kingdom. It's gonna be fucking sick.
Do you want to know why I keep saying another 1.5 to 2 years? Because the development cycle for this game. It's been in development for a long time, but the release cycle is every 3 years we get a new Pokemon game. But I bring that up because you only see Zelda games like once every 6 years. Like that's just how it works. And they delay them when they know that it's not up to par. And the unfortunate reality for Pokemon is that it's such a massive franchise that Game Freak doesn't have that luxury. And that's what I'm driving at, is the machine is much bigger than Game Freak. Game Freak doesn't. Zelda is Zelda. It's a game franchise. There's a little bit of merchandise out there, but there's not really an anime. There's not cards. There's not really as much driving. So they do have the luxury of delaying
celebrations.
Yeah. We're a little salty about that, but no, I think that, you know, that's the problem, is this bigger conglomerate machine when it comes to Pokemon. And I think really they're just hurting themselves. They, you know, you've got, I won't name names, but there's a prominent Pokemon content creator that I've always looked up to and respected, that is starting his own thing, and he's never outright said this, but you can kind of tell that he's kind of salty on the whole Pokemon thing, just because they're really abandoning just kind of their core. They're forgetting
their values.
Yeah, and it's really sad to see. I really think they're hurting themselves, but it is what it is. And I mean, something will eventually take its place, I suppose. But when it comes to those,
I'm a firm believer in, like, they'll fail so much, and the community will get so mad that they'll be like, oh well, okay, now we have to fix it and we have to do better. And maybe. I'm hoping for that as a worst case scenario. If they realize before that, then fantastic. But I think,
you know, the monster collecting and taming gaming genre is exploding, especially with like indie games. I do think it's,
and Temtem, I think, was set.
Yeah, Temtem's a big one, and they can't, they still, you know, I don't care what anybody tells you, they don't hold a candle to Pokemon. Still, they just don't.
I would agree with that. Seeing of what I've seen of the games, I would agree.
They don't hold a candle to Pokemon. But the truth is that at some point, if Pokemon continues down this path as a whole, like it will not. It's inevitable that something else is going to take its place.
So like, I think your definition of this path and my definition of this path, well, we both agree it's a bad path.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have different definitions of what that path actually is that we think they're going down. What path do both you and Fappy think that Pokemon is headed right now?
Fappy, I'll let you go first. Yeah,
I can sum it up pretty well for me. I think the path they're currently on leads to money talks more than community. And when you have such a big fan, but literally the biggest franchise in the world, when you have such a big fan base, I do not understand how. Well, actually, sort of, I do understand. That they can immediately say, well, there'll always be people buying Pokemon. It doesn't matter if some people are mad, the rest of them will buy it. And it's become such a corporate version of something that should be beloved for the companies. And it's got to be the higher ups, like the people developing the games. They love it, otherwise they wouldn't be there. Like, you know, yes. They've had the same people making the games for years. I haven't heard of them hiring anyone new in a long time. And when they outsourced to one American developer, he made a few things in the game and stuff, and like he loved his experience there, but then ended up leaving. So it was like,
are you talking about James Turner?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, he's from the UK actually.
Sorry. I thought he was American.
Give us a lowdown, James Turner, because a lot of our audience probably doesn't know who that is.
He's the creator of the ice cream Pokemon.
Yeah, he I believe he was the new art director. He designed a lot of the new Pokemon starting with Gen 5, so that would be Black, White, Black 2, and White 2. His name is James Turner. He's from the United Kingdom. Really, really talented art designer. He did a lot of the new designs basically from Gen 5 onward. And he's actually, if you guys have seen, you know, this isn't a James Turner plug or whatever, but his art's really what's the word I'm looking for? It's really iconic. Yeah. So, what's that? Vanillish is one of them. Vanillite, Vanillish, Vanillix. So that one's Vanillish that we're looking at right there on stream. But
it's literally an ice cream cone with like smiley face.
Yeah,
but it looks cool.
He did a lot of good designs, but it's James Turner is who Fappy was referencing there, but he's now left to form his own development studio, but it has to be because, you know, he's a professional, and so he hasn't really said why. I'm sure at some point there will probably be some book released or some documentary done on why he left the Pokemon Company and Game Freak, but he's left to start his own development studio. If you guys have seen that game, The Plucky Squire, It's an independent game. It's him and I believe one other gentleman that are developing that game. So it's a really neat looking game. But yeah, he's no longer with Game Freak.
Yeah. So Tyson, what do you, I don't think I heard exactly. Maybe hopefully you didn't say it right. What is the
your
path?
path.
Yeah, what's the path that you think Pokemon is taking?
You know, this is
it
nothing
different than Fappies?
Well, okay, so the way that I'll put it is the truth is this release schedule is nothing new for Pokemon. If you kind of look back at the release schedule for every new generation, it's been pretty much the same over the last, decade
this
plus.
Is true. This is true.
Little
But don't
instance
forget
of difference about 6 months to a year. Yeah.
the games
But,
were. I mean, not that I don't want to take. I don't want to say that the games were simple, but like, let's be honest here. Those games to develop were much different than the games that they have to develop now. So I don't know if that's a good point because like.
Well, the way that I would put it is like it's not. I guess the way that I would describe it, the path hasn't changed over the years, but the content's changed. So we are used to seeing a new Pokemon generation release every 3 to 4 years. That's happened over the last decade plus. It's just been decade plus. I mean, really on down to, even DS days and before. Like we've gotten pretty consistent releases every 3 to 4 years of new generations. So that hasn't changed. But what has changed is the amount of sheer content. Because of every new Pokemon that they have to design, because that's what draws new people in, and that's what keeps the competitive meta from being stagnant, is having new monsters for every generation in every region. So I think the biggest problem for Game Freak and for Pokemon where it comes is the sheer number of models they have to build per new generation because of the new games. But so the volume of things that they must develop has basically grown exponentially. Let's put it that way, right? It's grown exponentially. The things that they have to develop for one game that are split into two, right, has grown over the years exponentially. And they're still given the same release window. And I think, so the path that I'm looking at is, if you continue down this path of every 3 to 4 years we get a new generation, and it's really 3 years. Every 3 years we get a brand new generation. That is to the franchise's own destruction of their reputation and possibly really the game's value as a whole. I would really like to see. I do not have a problem with the vision of Scarlet and Violet, the potential of Scarlet and Violet, what they could have been. It's all there. The structure's there. The problem is they didn't
around it.
There was no time. There was they literally had.
Let's go for real fast. Let's go. I don't know. When was BDSP? Was that 2021? That was November of 2021. Was BDSP was released? Okay.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
January of 2022. Arceus was released, and I know you two feel differently about Arceus than I do in terms of like how good of a game it was and how I believe Arceus could easily be a replacement of the whole franchise.
But even then,
game direction. But then later in November of 2022. Now we're 1 year to the date, basically.
Yep.
The third Pokemon game, big Pokemon game. Arceus was big game in 3 years. The third one in 3 years. The first of those games, BDSP, had issues at launch and also was deemed a kind of failure from a lot of people.
So the difference
Arceus was great, but was made by a completely different team.
Well, we have to keep in mind though too that you have to keep in mind though. So
BDSP wasn't made by Game Freak.
It wasn't made by Game Freak. It was made by Ilka. So that is kind of off in its own category. So like BDSP kind of gets eliminated from that conversation a little bit.
Let's look at it like this. Instead of looking at like Ilka and whoever did Arceus and whoever did Scarlet, let's look at it like this. Pokemon resources were used to make BDSP, were used to make Arceus, and were used to make Scarlet. If you just take those three teams and go, make a Pokemon
develop
game,
a new
baby.
generation.
The three teams are going to make it all together. Take all the resources that you have at your disposal to make Pokemon games. Let's get them all together. Let's work together.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Because as some people in our chat was saying earlier, which I agree with, there was parts of Arceus that I believe that were not in Scarlet and Violet that I think should have been.
Oh yeah,
and
the throwing mechanics. Yeah,
and
the throwing
vice
mechanics
versa.
were really
there
good.
were parts of Arceus, Scarlet and Violet that should be in Scarlet. I'm sorry. There was parts of Scarlet that should have been in Arceus that were not there.
Yep.
And if hey, how about this, guys? How about we don't release the game in January or November? Let's release the game in January of 2023. And no Arceus, no Scarlet. Just scrap both those games. Work together. Make a new one for
new generation. Yep. No. Look. You and I are in complete agreement on that. I played Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum to death. I would be willing. Now, it's become tradition at this point to where remakes are almost expected in the Pokemon community.
Yeah.
But at the point, like I said, because of that exponential growth and just the sheer amount of monsters that they have to put into every new generation that requires more development time, assets, all of that stuff. Dude, I'm with you 100%. Like BDSP, it was fun to play through. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl was fun to play through for one time or whatever. But dude, I've never touched the game since. I played through each one.
I sold both. I bought both. I was excited and I sold them.
Well, they were buggy. They were really buggy. And then but I'm with you. So I'm actually in agreement there. Yes. Because Game Freak did develop both. They did develop both Legends Arceus and Scarlet Violet. So at the very least, take those two teams and honestly sacrifice Legends Arceus for as good as a game as it was, but just take all of that time and effort and resources and just make the new generation. Just make Gen 9. We didn't need Arceus. And the thing about Arceus was a lot of people, I don't know that a lot of people look at this, and it's not that I'm anything special, but a lot of people really complain that we didn't get like an Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire version of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, where it was basically just a copy paste remake, and then we got Arceus. But what people don't realize is that the reason you got a copy paste Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl is because instead of making you like a remake with more content like Heart Gold Soul Silver or Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, was because of this current generation. That's what Legends Arceus was. That's where Game Freak put their effort. That's where so instead of giving you a remake, you got a new style of game that went along.
You got two compatible games that went with each other.
Yes. So you got two games, but I am with you, Geeb. I am with you. Look, at some point, we got to let the nostalgia...
I'm also in agreement with this, too. Like, I just have to say quick, I also believe they should just get all their resources together, combine it all. Even Ilka, bring Ilka in, get them all in, and then make Let's Go Johto. I'm just saying, let's go Johto.
How do we mute him?
Just say shrimp on the Barbie 3 times and I'll leave.
Shrimp on the Barbie, shrimp on the Barbie, shrimp on the Barbie.
All right, disconnecting call. Bye.
But no, I think...
I completely agree.
That's where I'm at, man. Is Geeb? It's really nice actually to kind of like I think we all kind of approach the argument from different directions, but it seems as though we
same point.
We center on the same thing. Dude, make the new generation. It's the first real open world Pokemon game, and it could have been so much better if they just look. We didn't need Arceus.
If they didn't suck.
Yeah, well, take everything that you had from Arceus. They did. Agreed. Take everything you have from all of that and just put it into the Generation 9 that could have been. But that's the way that I'm looking at Scarlet and Violet at this point right now. And we'll see. I'm still holding out a thread of hope and faith that the DLC completes Scarlet and Violet. I don't know that they will at this point. The only reason I say that or have any hope that they will is because it did for Sword and Shield. But the way that things are going, I don't know. But I would have much preferred them to just get rid of. We didn't need Arceus. As good as a game as it is, it's good. It's good for a playthrough. It's like Zelda meets Pokemon. It's fantastic. But I would have much preferred. Just don't even make it and give Gen 9 the treatment that it should have been given. Meaning that we would have had elements of Arceus in it. We would have had all of the good stuff from Arceus with all the good stuff from Scarlet Violet, and it would have been the revolutionary open world Pokemon game that everybody thought that we were getting. Instead of this,
it would have been finished on time.
Yes. And instead we got this
let's paint this picture. Let's paint, because there's a lot of Zelda fans in this community. Let's paint this picture. I love my analogies. Let's do this. Let's just entertain me for a minute.
Here we go.
We got Skyward Sword, which was lots of issues. Lots of people didn't like it.
Like the original one on the Wii.
Yeah, sure. And it was a really good game, though. I think it was a really good game.
Amen.
But there was just tons of issues with it. It wasn't perfect, and there was room for improvement. And in this fake world I'm making here, let's pretend that Breath of the Wild wasn't good. So then we get Breath of the Wild, which introduces this open world game of Zelda, changed the formula in a good way, but they just missed the mark. That's not what happened, luckily, but let's just pretend that's what happened. But in between Zelda was like, let's release Link's Awakening remake, and it sucked. And let's release a Link to the Past, just like ported. Just here's a port. We spent some resources and time. Here's buy a Switch cartridge with a Link to the Past on it, the original game, and like just a bunch of weird random things in between. When we all know after Skyward Sword, they should have been fixing the game for the next game, Breath of the Wild. They should have been making the game better, but instead they spent more time doing weird other things, and they made a Zelda movie in that time frame. We're like, what the crap is this? Why did Illuminations make a comedy of Zelda? I don't know what's going on. They're making Squishmallows and Beanie Babies, and like we're all just like, but the games, guys. And it's like what did they do? Why? I know why. Let's just say it. The reason why is money. They, and Drip and I were on the phone. Drip and I talked about this last week earlier. Sorry, Drip and I were on the phone earlier. Drip and I talked last week in the pod, like Nintendo, and this kind of goes for Pokemon as well. Game Freak, not Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, and Nintendo. They don't care. They don't like us. We love the products. We love the services they provide. Especially Pokemon fans. The Pokemon fans love Pokemon more than
we're rabid,
most
dude.
Franchises. They're rabid. You're foaming at the mouth for every game. But for some reason, they're any chance they can get to I've already cursed a couple times. I'm gonna do it again. Fuck us in the butt. They take that chance. Any chance they can, they're like, we don't care. Y'all are our cash cows. We're gonna take your teats and milk you for all that you got, and we're gonna continue to do what we want to do. And make what we want to make, and get these insane profits. And in return, you're gonna give us your loyalty. You're gonna give us your loyalty. You're gonna buy our games on release day. But in return, we're gonna do nothing for you. In fact, we're gonna release broken games. We're going it is just really picture like Beanie Babies. Yeah, I said it. It's just really upsetting. It's really upsetting.
I think one of the people that really irks me the most, and he's not here in the chat tonight, but I think one of the people that irks me the most over this, but I've never been in more agreement with him, is Alex of Switch Corner. When he says it's just all about that money, but so in this case, look, we all got to make $1. We have families to feed. But I think, it's right. If you look at the numbers, man, like they don't make anywhere near as much off of their games that they do their merchandise or anything else. Their cards are really big.
Yeah, we didn't even mention the cards. I mean, that's huge.
So, and that's the thing is, like, the truth is, if we all want to be honest with ourselves, the truth about the games is that they really are kind of the redheaded stepchild. They know that they have to release them. But they're not really the big money makers for the Pokemon Company or Nintendo as a whole. It's
not in any way, shape, or form.
It's anymore. The merch, dude. It's the merch. The merch is the continuous cash cow. The games are just kind of what's canon, and that's what kind of keeps the story rolling. So that's kind of why they know that they need them. But when it comes to,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just gonna probably offend you for a second. I know that you guys love your original Pokemon games a lot. I mean, I bought them on the 3DS. I played them as a kid. My brother had them. I played on his Game Boy and on my Game Boy. They're fun games. Let's not kid ourselves. Even for the games that came out during that time period,
they had so many problems. They had so many problems.
Yeah, they had a lot of problems. Yes, but like they also just, let's be frank, they kind of sucked. Like, if you looked at other game, I know you're not going to agree, but I'm going to say it because a lot of us think this. Like, they just weren't better than other games that were out there at the same time. Like, if you look at the Mario games, I mean, different series, but like, come on, it's pixels on a square screen for a Game Boy. They're a great competition. Any Game Boy game was competition with the next Game Boy game. And like there were just so many better games to buy in Pokemon. That didn't mean that Pokemon didn't sell well. I'm not saying that at all. I understand Pokemon sold well and was good, in terms of like fan approval and stuff. But like they just weren't that good at games. This is my one bad opinion for the episode. They just weren't that they weren't that good at games. Any of those.
That's what I was saying
Pokemon
before, where they were always 2 steps behind every other game company for some reason.
Even back then they were focused on the shows and the merch and the cards. Like the games were just kind of there. They were fun. They were repeat. They put a game out game after game after game, and they're the same freaking game with very minor upgrades. Always had issues. You know, it's never been the focus. It's just never been the focus.
Yeah. I mean, minor upgrades, maybe. It depends on the way you look at it. Definitely minor upgrades to like a more casual player that maybe like the target audience, you know what I mean? For sure. Every generation really does come with significant updates, no matter how small they might look to someone that really isn't, you know, involved in like the deeper meta of the game. But I do understand what you're saying. You know, the thing is like, I think since Gen, you know, like I say this a lot, guys, but it's just true. And if you don't believe me, you know, Hari's in the chat right now. You guys can ask Hari. But Gen 5 is the best generation. Pokemon really did peak at Generation 5 with Black, White, Black 2, White 2. And, you know,
DS Pokemon games
because it's based in America.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, look, America, you know. America.
I still don't have an Australian region yet. I'm so sad.
We will at some point. But the thing is I say that just because Geeb kind of brought up like how some of the older games aren't good. And like looking at it in like a traditional JRPG sense, like they're all pretty good. But I kind of tend to agree. Like it's really hard to go back and play Red and Blue nowadays. Like they're not really like they're fun for nostalgia's sake, but they're really not fun for like the sake of playing a whole game. Or even Gold and Silver, but like, you know, obviously play Heart Gold, Soul Silver instead of Gold and Silver. Those are really good games. But the point that I'm making is like, Pokemon still is good in its past. And honestly, I would really say that they did much better in the past with handling the franchise. Black and White and Black 2, White 2 were complete games when they launched. Really, really good competitive meta, that really reinvigorated the franchise on a competitive level. There was lots of good that came out of that. And I really think that ever since, this is just, you know, again, this is just my opinion, but really ever since Black and White and Black 2, White 2, the franchise just lost its magic. Not shortly after did we get X and Y on the 3DS. And they were good games. I'm not really slighting them. They were really, really good games for the most part, but they just, ever since then, the magic of Pokemon, what made it great, whatever that element is that I really can't even put my finger on, has just kind of like downward trended ever since Gen 6. Gen 6 kind of like led the charge of this downward trend of Pokemon. And that's the way that I would put it.
I gotta say this, Tyson, though, because I talked about this in my review for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on my YouTube account, and I've talked about it on the podcast in the past. I will say this. I think that there was some magic in Scarlet and Violet. They did hit some of that magic. It was blanketed by issues, low gravity beans, side quests, glitches, clipping. You know, there was magic in these games. I do believe that. I still feel that. I have the Japanese, you know, double pack box art because I love it so much back there. Like I do, not playing any other Pokemon games really. Like the last Pokemon game I played for any real amount of time was Pokemon Go during the Pokemon Go phase. Like I did play some of Let's Go. I didn't play any Shield. I played one of DS. That I didn't
you
like
should go back and revisit Shield, dude. For real, you should.
I didn't play Shield at all.
You should.
I'll probably pick up a used copy for real cheap some in the future. I'm sure.
I would be interested, not to interrupt you, but I would definitely be interested to hear if you could tough it through a Shield playthrough. I would love to hear.
The differences,
I would, yes, I would love to hear it.
I need to give it a chance because how much I like these games.
I would also like to
Violet.
hear that. That would. Be
I would love to hear it. They're colorful. They're vibrant. Like they are structural. They're linear. They're not open except for
they
like
look
the wild
better than
areas.
this game. That's for damn sure.
Amen.
I'm in a much different boat to Ty in regards to where I feel like Pokemon peaked. I honestly believe Pokemon peaked at Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I think that was one of the better games they've ever made. And then they had a drop for a bit. X and Y started to raise it a little bit, but still stayed on a steady level. And then as soon as they went Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, peak again. Some reason,
Oras
was so
was
top tier,
yes,
and
agreed.
it was perfection.
Yeah.
I couldn't find
Agreed.
a problem with it. And
I have to agree there 100%.
As someone who played from Gen 1 all the way through, seeing Gen 3 remakes that were like to the T perfection with extra stuff added in,
Yep.
it was so good. And then, Sword and Shield took a little bit of getting used to for me after we had Sun and Moon. I didn't really like Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, but I can understand why people love them. And then once we got Sword and Shield, I immediately struggled to get into it. As soon as I got about 2 hours into it, I was loving it. And when they did the DLC, I felt like that was then a complete game.
Yes.
And it was a full phase transition into what Pokemon can be again, and it peaked again. Yeah, they've done multiple peaks throughout their series of games, and these 3 games in particular, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, and Sword and Shield, they have peaked heavily. Yeah. So I honestly believe they have a couple wins, couple losses, and it just generally happens. And I feel like Gen 10, from everything they're getting from this, even Nintendo's statement on Gen 9 and how it was released, saying that they are sorry for it, that's never happened. Nintendo has never apologized for that.
I'm going to be the Debbie Downer here and say I have zero hope for Gen 10. I don't.
And that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely
I don't have any hope for Gen 10.
I'm just saying, if Nintendo is apologizing for them, they have to nip it in the butt and say, like...
But then Nintendo needs to give them the resource. This is the problem.
That's true as well.
Like, Nintendo is also part of Pokemon Company. You've got Creatures, you've got Nintendo, and you've got Game Freak, I believe, are the 3 companies that make up the Pokemon Company.
Yep.
Like, it is one thing for Nintendo to step in and say words. Give resources, do something. And maybe, look, I would love to live in a world where maybe Gen 9 suffered so badly because they're currently developing Gen 10. I will look, if I got to suffer through one generation for just
no, you're wishful thinking now. You're just wishful thinking.
No. I'm not wishful thinking. This isn't my thinking. This is just I'm just giving an example. I'm speaking 100% rhetorically and hypothetically. Okay. This is not the way I'm thinking, because like I said, I go back to the original statement, Geeb. Like, I have no hope for Gen 10, sir. but if this is the case, which I don't think it is, I would be willing to suffer through one bad generation if it meant that Gen 10 was just mind blowing. But look, do you want to know where we're going to get in Gen 10? I'm going to predict it right now. Mark it on this podcast. However, whatever the timestamp is, we are getting Legends Arceus mechanics mixed with standard mechanics that we saw, in the more traditional games like Scarlet, Violet, Sword and Shield, all the way down. That's what your Gen 10 will be. And so it
better be. Freaking better be, dude.
But see, the thing is, the problem with that is we've all experienced it already. So it's not special anymore. And so it's not going to blow anybody's mind.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
I'll raise a point. If they did something in Gen 10 where, for some reason, a culmination of all the specialties of the last couple generations of Pokemon games came together, I would lose my freaking mind about that. Like Z-moves, Mega Evolution, Terastallization, and Dynamax. If that all came to fruition,
no,
I know, but I'm just saying, if they had the ability to have certain arenas that did certain things, and it was a huge game, that would
Super
be cool.
Smash Mon. Like, dude, Smashmon, cool. Custom arenas. Oh, dude, I'm here for that. That's cool. You know what they need to do? They need to quit with this.
Rebrand Pokemon Stadium. You could rebrand Pokemon Stadium.
Dude, do you guys remember me saying this?
Make a game where you become a gym leader.
Do you guys remember
RPG, baby?
Well, listen, do you remember me saying this back in the days of Arceus? I think it was right before Arceus launched. I was kind of the opinion, hey, maybe they give us Pokemon Stadium on the Switch. So here's what I think would be the coolest thing that they could possibly do is look, you guys know, and some of the chat here might be familiar with my opinions on Arceus. I do think it's a must play, but I do think as far as a mainline Pokemon game, it's not up to snuff. I do think everybody should play it because it's exactly what you would want out of a game that meshes like Dark Souls or Zelda or something like that with Pokemon. Very, very good action style RPG that's got time-based RPG mechanics. It's great. It's an excellent game. But as far as a mainline Pokemon game, it's not up to snuff. But here's what I was saying before the launch of Arceus. You guys might remember this. Is what if they gave us? I would be here for this, by the way. Give us Arceus style games where it's action oriented. You catch all the Pokemon you can. It's quicker.
Get the mythical at the end.
Streamlined battles. You can get the mythicals, all that. Where there's no competitive battling, there's none. And that's my biggest problem with it is it takes away all of the things that make a Pokemon game is Arceus. But then you've got home. So home is at the center of these games. So if you have all these adventure style Pokemon games, home is at the center. You can transfer everything into home and then build a stadium game outside of that then becomes your competitive focus. So you don't need competitive battling anymore in your adventure style Pokemon games because your competitive game is now separate. And then on top of that, you can transfer every single Pokemon becomes compatible with that stadium version. That's what I would like to see.
So you got in your left hand Pokemon competitive, and then on your right hand you got Pokemon adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the competitive is just a mainstay hub for all the adventure games to send Pokemon to. I like that. I really like that.
I think that's cool. The way. Honestly, I think for Pokemon, that's the way to move forward. That's my opinion. That's the way to move forward.
That's a great opinion. I love that.
That's
way better.
That's
than
where I'm at.
Your stinky opinion from earlier. Though. What was that opinion?
Super Mario Brothers movie is just super peachio. I rest my case.
Yeah. Stinky opinion from Tyson.
Okay. Did we want to finish up these bug fixes? Because there's a couple more to go over still.
We might have run out of time.
No, Fabi. The answer is no.
I talked way too much.
No, it's not that we run out of time. It's that I don't care anymore. I don't care about the. Fabi, no, I know you love Pokemon, but like, no offense, I don't care about.
No. I don't. I was actually checking in because I didn't care about the rest of it either. The mainstay was the egg stuff that I was talking about earlier.
Good. Yeah. No, I don't care about the bug fixes.
I do have something I want to mention though.
Sure.
Me and Ty are on opposite wavelengths right now. With like, he's bored of the games. I'm still very much into
for
them.
sure. That's why maybe what I bought you too. Honest for that point, we haven't really gotten to that. But Tyson's kind of bored of the game, and Fappy's playing 6 hours a day the last few
it's not
weeks?
fun
18 hours in the last 3 days, and I'm gonna play after this podcast, so
it's insane. So I don't know, how'd you want to take this, Fappy?
All right, so the thing I will mention is, you know what really helps, if you've ever played Pokemon, which I'm sure a lot of you have, you have this, you've probably seen the anime, right? You've probably seen Ash going on his adventure or whatever, or any other character.
That's how a lot of, I want to say this real fast, Fappy. That's how a lot of us were introduced to Pokemon, whether we took with it or not. A lot of us as kids were introduced to the anime.
And that's the premise that you sort of want representation for in the games.
Exactly.
You want to go on this adventure with your Pokemon, with your friends.
That's my review.
And go do stuff. Violet and Scarlet, they did this thing for the game, and Sword and Shield did it too. Sword and Shield introduced the camping mechanic where you can camp out with your Pokemon and interact with them and play with them and stuff like that. It was in X and Y, and it was in a couple of those other games, but it was just like Pokemon and me, and you could just brush your Pokemon and that's it. You had actual interactions with your Pokemon, and it was very similar to Pokemon Snap and stuff like that, where you'd have actual expressions come out of them and everything like that.
Snap.
But you have this premise in Scarlet and Violet where you have a picnic, you can kick a ball around with your Pokemon, you can do all this stuff with your Pokemon. And the reason I've put so much time and effort in the last 3 days into Pokemon again, and before that it was like every weekend, maybe a couple hours, whatever. The last 3 days though is because I started watching the anime again. And while I was watching the anime, I was playing. And the Master Journey series is on Netflix. I chucked it on. It's only 40-something episodes for the first half of the season or whatever.
Only.
Well, it's like
a lot of episodes.
Yeah, because it's not the finale of the whole show. They haven't done that yet, and I don't have Crunchyroll or anything. Shout out to Japanese anime streams, but yeah.
And the weebs. Shout out to all the weebs out there.
Yeah, but I haven't had a chance to catch up with the rest of it. So I've watched every anime up to Diamond and Pearl, then stopped, and then I caught up with Journeys. And Journeys is kind of cool because it's in the Sword and Shield arc and era. And you have this point where it's not introducing anything Scarlet and Violet, but what it is doing is they are constantly going and catching more and more Pokemon, and it's something they haven't done before. Every episode, the character Go is catching more and more Pokemon. Ash is also getting stronger and stronger and getting ready for this big tournament. And it's this one thing for me where I was sitting down and I was playing the game and I was watching, and there was this I guess like a link between them where I felt like I actually have a solid team in my game and I really want to battle with them. I really want to go into competitive with them. I did link battles, I did all this stuff with them. And then I thought, oh, I really want to hunt for a really good Pokemon. And then I saw, Ash catch a Pokemon or whatever. And then I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to pick something that I know I'm going to really like in my team. And it just brought me back to my childhood a little bit. And it gave me a nostalgia effect. And that's why I've put so much effort into the game recently. Because for some reason, having the show on in the background and watching it, it puts you in that mode and that mindset. And I'll tell you what, the Pokemon Company are intelligent as all hell, because they know how to get you. They know how to grip you, especially if you're an avid game player. Because
nostalgia is a powerful tool.
Yeah, and like I don't know if it's because the series is over now in Japan and they're starting Pokemon Horizons, which doesn't have Ash and doesn't have any of the
Thank
old characters.
Goodness.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it because Ash needs to grow. No, I'm honestly, Geeb,
he's been 10 for 25 years.
Technically, this
so
is a funny
have I,
thing too.
Tyson. So have I.
This is a funny thing too. As the series ends, technically he's 14.
Okay.
Technically he's 14. There's
okay,
like
well,
there's weird little bits that
he's been
a teenager for 25 years. Let's go.
But yeah, I for some reason I just had this fascination with the idea of sitting down and watching because I had the spare time to do it, and I just sat down and watched, and it was just me on my own on the couch, and I was just playing Pokemon as I was going and having a good time. Like I haven't done that in a very long time, and it felt really good. So I highly recommend any Pokemon players to just sit down and watch a bit of anime while you play the game and see how you go. It's also bringing me back into some of the older games. Like I never want to play BDSP again. I never want to play Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl ever again. Yeah. However, I'm gonna Nuzlocke again because I, for some reason, got pulled into it again from watching the anime again.
You want to know what game that I've been thinking about playing, just because I need something else to do in my gaming life, I suppose, that I don't want to play. I've considered playing Let's Go, and then I slap myself back into reality and remind myself how horrible that game is, and I'm not ever going to touch it.
Good decision. Tyson, any response to Fappy's his lovely little thing he just said there?
Man, I really don't know. So without dragging the rest of the podcast down and getting into my personal life, I've got a lot of other things going on in my personal life right now. So the truth is, for me, I don't know if,
you took your beard off.
Yeah, my beard's gone. I'm sad.
Your personal life just ripped the beard right off.
Yeah, I did. But no, there's just a lot of stuff that I'm dealing with, and I'm doing a lot of
that's fair.
Doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of maturing, even on my own part. And so maybe this place that I'm coming to with Pokemon really is just me kind of moving past it, I guess. I don't know. But I brought this up in our Discord, our private Discord group. I don't know if you guys saw the message or not, but it's like, maybe it's just my tastes changing. I don't know. All of a sudden out of nowhere, really, I just don't have the same, I don't get the same sense of magic when I play that game. And really any game right now, I've got a lot going on that I need to handle, but I just don't. It's not, if I'm being honest, it's not Pokemon right now, especially Scarlet and Violet. They're not enjoyable for me. It feels the response, I guess, to answer your question, Geeb, to what Fappy said, to contrast what Fappy said, the game is not fun for me. It feels like a chore to play. When in the past, especially with Sword and Shield, having the mechanic like Dynamax was really exciting, really big. They did a good job with it. It was fleshed out.
Big energy, camera angles definitely helped that as well.
Yeah, it was just all there, man. And so maybe, like I said, it could just be me. Maybe it's me. Maybe my tastes are changing. Maybe I'm maturing a little bit. I don't know. I'm doing a lot of that kind of soul searching, I guess. Soul searching right now. So it could be me. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's, maybe it's nothing with Pokemon. Maybe it's just me. But that's where I'm at with the franchise right now. I'm really kind of like, you've lost you've lost your magic. And really it is it feels like a job and a slog and a chore to play. It is not fun or enjoyable for me right now. And like I said before, all I'm really doing right now is logging in to get those 7-star raids for whatever reason, even though I have them sitting at home. But normally I'd be doing a lot of competitive battling and a lot of that stuff, exercising my thought capacity, my brain. It's a lot of fun, man, trying to outsmart your opponents, but I'm just not feeling it, man. And like I said, maybe it's me. I don't know. Could be the franchise, could be me, could be both of us, but it's not fun. It's not fun for me right now. So.
I just think you're growing through it, bro. I don't think it's like the franchise is gonna still be there no matter what. So if you ever come back to it as heavy as you were, then that's great. If not, you've grown through. It's all good. Doesn't
I'll
really
keep
matter.
playing. I'm excited to see what the DLC brings. Like that all said, because I don't want to sound.
Can we talk about that in a minute too? Because I really want to discuss something in that.
Sure.
Depending on how much time Geeb wants to give to this, but I'm excited about the DLC. I'm excited to see what happens, the potential that there might be with the DLC. I do have, like I said before, that sliver of hope to just kind of reiterate what I talked about before, that the DLC will complete the games. But like we talked about, man, it sure is sad that you got to spend $95 to get a full experience that you should have gotten from the game.
And
that's where I stand on
complain
that.
about Tears of the Kingdom being 70.
Oh, and that's like when you look at that from that perspective, it's only fair to really say that. Like it's only fair. Don't complain about Tears of the Kingdom. They are giving that game its due polish, and there will be DLC for that game, and it'll be worth it. just like the DLC for Breath of the Wild.
Less than 3 weeks away, boys. I cannot wait for that.
Is it bad that I never played the DLC for Breath of the Wild?
You should.
I haven't finished it either, Fappy, but I have.
It's fun.
It's fun. It's not a full extra game. It's not. Don't have that expectation.
No,
but it is. It's it adds like 15 hours.
It's
of fun
a lot of fun
to your Breath of the Wild playthrough.
And one of the most, if not the most challenging bosses in the entire franchise. Really, like it is. But I need to play that boss. But it's but the difference that we're looking at, since you brought it up, Geeb, the DLC with Breath of the Wild. And since we were talking about, we're kind of making the comparison to Legend of Zelda, but I do think it's a fair comparison to make. When you buy Breath of the Wild, you get a complete game, and then the DLC just adds to it. It's additional, but you don't need it. It's not necessary. You don't need it. But it just makes the experience so much more rich. And so when you compare that to really what Pokemon has done ever since coming to console with the Nintendo Switch, starting with Sword and Shield, even Sword and Shield was really an incomplete game. It was more complete than Scarlet and Violet. I would argue that, but anytime I recommend to anybody, and you guys have probably heard this on my live streams, but anytime I recommend to anybody to play Sword and Shield, I always say, pick up the DLC. It is worth it. And unfortunately, it completes the experience. But it is a lot of fun as a newcomer that comes into a game like Sword and Shield to have the DLC from the get-go, because from very early on in the game, you can experience the DLC, and that's what makes it feel so complete.
Yeah, you could just go there, which is mental to me. Like that's so good.
But that's the contrast of a game like Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom. Those DLCs are additive. They are not necessary. When you look at a game like Pokemon Sword and Shield or Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the DLCs are going to be necessary. They're necessary. You must pay to get the complete experience, and that's the unfortunate truth that I kind of rest on with Pokemon as a franchise.
Guys, Fappy, Tyson, thank you guys so much for joining us. You can find Tyson and Fappy. Both of your links are down below. Faptor Race and the Tyson W. You guys are awesome. What a fun conversation this was.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Wait, let's do a thank you fight. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm in Utah. We're the most grateful people on the planet.
Everybody, thanks for watching. We're gonna, if you're in the stream, stick around as always. If you guys are listening or watching after the live stream, we're gonna sign off for now. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you guys.
We'll see you guys. Drip will be back next week. Actually, Drip might just be back in a few minutes for the live stream, so apologies to you guys. Oh, wait, is he here? Is that I hear a Drip right now. Before you got Drip, say something. Sign off the episode, Drip.
I don't know what to say. You put me on the spot.
Just tell them how awesome we are, Drip.
Just
do
say
it.
something
Sign it
awesome.
off.
Pokemon is awesome,
No,
and I'm
we.
so glad we got to talk about this tonight. This was great. I'm glad you guys came on. Thank you guys so much for coming. It was a great conversation. I'm glad I could be a part of it.
Thank you for allowing us to be a part of it as well.
It is always a blessing and an honor to be on with you guys. Thank you for having
it's
us.
And a curse.
absolutely great.
We'll see you guys next week.
Later.
Bye.